Let's take a quick look at the effects of an export subsidy. We have our supply curve and demand curve for an industry where the world price means that the country is an exporter. So initially exports are this amount. The country's government, for whatever reason, decides to put a subsidy of S, and so domestic producers now receive PW plus S when they export. Consumers, we assume, can't purchase at PW, but instead have to purchase now at the price PW plus S because the domestic producers won't sell product to them at PW, will instead sell them at PW plus S. So we assume that the domestic consumers, for some reason, maybe there's a tariff also, can't import at PW. So the domestic price becomes PW plus S. Now we see that consumer surplus declines by this amount, but producer surplus goes up by this whole amount here. So some of the loss in consumer surplus is offset by the producer surplus gain. The producer's gain, of course, is the subsidy, which is a cost to the government. So we're interested in the net effects of this subsidy, and there are two losses from the subsidy. The loss in consumer surplus, so that's the change in utility that comes from some consumers no longer consuming the product, and then we have the loss of producer surplus. That's the production inefficiency. Domestic producers are induced to produce the good when it costs them more to produce it than it would cost getting it from the rest of the world. In the case of the large country, again, we have an initial world price, but now when the government puts the subsidy S on, there's then a gap between the new domestic price, P star plus S, and the price on the world market, P star. There should be a star here. The world price will drop, and there's a terms of trade loss to the country. The country before was exporting at PW, and now will be exporting at this lower price. So this area here is the terms of trade loss that goes to the country because they're exporting product at a lower price. The amount of exports, of course, is this amount, and so that's the terms of trade loss, in addition to the two deadweight losses that we talked about earlier. So you get an extra loss when you have a large country that, because it decides to export the product, causes world prices to go down. This would be the case of, especially the case of grain exports from the United States and Europe, where the subsidy to those lowers the world price.